What's up, guys? We're in the truck. It must be Field Trip Friday! Here we go! What's up, Homestead homies? It's Off Grid with Doug and Stacy. I'm Doug.
And I'm Stacy.
And I'm Chris.
And today we're coming at you from the Butterfly House, another great community resource to help teach young kids and even adults come here to learn about pollinators and the benefits of butterflies and how they habitat and reproduce and all that information, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so today we're with the butterfly specialist.
Yes, he's a science education coordinator at the Butterfly House here in St. Louis.
Spit it out, girl.
I know. I was always
She's all excited.
Tongue twisters. I'm excited to do this. This is our first Field Trip Friday for
Of 2018. Yay! So also, we just happened to pick a day where it's 80 degrees outside, and tonight it'll be like 30, and then tomorrow it'll be high of 35. So the weather's all over the place right now. We're kind of waiting for spring to show up, and so today we thought we'd bring this video to you guys, talk about the pollinators, and talk about things that you can do around your place if you're in an urban setting, a suburban setting, a homestead setting, to help bring pollinators to your garden area. Yeah.
One of my favorite things to talk about is how absolutely anybody can make a difference. Whether you live in an apartment or have a massive estate, you can make a difference for pollinators.
So, I guess you do like a course or a speak here for people that come in?
We have several programs kind of throughout the year that focus on pollinators. One's coming up right at the beginning of April when gardening season really begins, and then we do them throughout the year.
So what do you talk about when you're presenting that?
Several different topics. One topic focuses mainly on butterfly gardening and the importance of host plants, which are what the caterpillars feed on. Many people want to know how they can attract more butterflies, and it's really all about learning what butterflies live in your area, finding the plants that their caterpillars eat, and thus that the mothers will lay eggs on. If you put those in, you attract the mothers to your garden.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when you said that, it was like, I bet a lot of people missed that. They worry about the flowers for the butterflies, but not the food for the caterpillars to, right. That's good, I like that.
Almost all of those plants will do double duty because they do flower and then provide the nectar. Having nectar plants is very important, but if butterflies are your aim, look up host plants. And again, they're going to vary by where you happen to live, but you'll find the ones that are native to your area and install them, and butterflies will come and lay eggs on them.
So in the Midwest is where we are. What are some of the plants that would be kind of things you would recommend?
Certainly one of the most well known for our area is the milkweed plant, which attracts monarch butterflies. Many people have become familiar with that, and monarchs are found in many different parts of the world, actually. Some other very common ones around here are lovely native plants like spice bush, or even common culinary herbs like parsley and dill can attract butterflies to lay eggs on them.
Man, so that's good for us, and like we talk about a lot on our channel is like a dual purpose thing. So not only are you bringing in the butterflies for the pollinators, and then will they go to like your tomato plants and these kind of things, or?
Depending on the kind of flower. Not every flower is a good butterfly flower.
Right.
Some are much more popular with these.
Oh, right. So like a tomato plant?
A tomato plant is almost exclusively pollinated by bumblebees.
By bumblebees.
Not even by honeybees, but really just by bumblebees.
That's good. See, we're learning stuff already. We just started.
So what about the houses? The bumblebee houses.
The bumblebee houses.
Are you a proponent for things like that?
Oh, absolutely. I think there are many different designs for native bee houses that can be built. Native bee is not a scientific term, it's a broad term that encompasses pretty much all the bees native to the area where we live here in the Midwest.
So back to the butterflies, what's the life cycle roughly from caterpillar to butterfly?
Okay, so most butterflies have a very short time in the egg, a couple of days. Then their caterpillar stage is going to last anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks to a month or two, largely depending on the species. They then move into the chrysalis, also known as the pupa, but not really as a cocoon, because the cocoon is actually a different structure meant for moths. And then they emerge as the butterfly, which is usually fairly short-lived, living just long enough to lay more eggs.
Isn't that something? So, you know, when what would be like the benefit? Is it just, you know, to have the beauty in the area? Because you say like they don't really do tomato plants, they're not really doing a lot of garden plants. They do your herbs and you know you named a few plants. But what other benefits would the butterfly bring to someone?
Sure. So it's a good question. Butterflies are valuable pollinators, and many people often forget the moths, which are very numerous as well, which also pollinate. But even though they don't do many vegetable plants, they will do some. And gardens exist for many different reasons.
Yeah.
Some just exist for beauty. There'll be flowers meant to be beautiful in and of themselves,
Sure.
and the butterflies will visit them. There are other gardens meant to be herb gardens, kitchen gardens, school gardens, all manner of things. Wildflower gardens that exist just to promote native plants often attract butterflies.
So I know that the bees, you know, there's a big buzz about the bees, you know, and the problem with the spraying and the declining populations. And I think I've heard something to the effect the monarchs are suffering that same kind of flight. So can you speak to like the butterfly and its existence and how the numbers are doing?
Sure. So one message that we try to convey to people who are interested in building a butterfly or pollinator garden is that for success, not only do you need good plants, but you need to use as few chemicals as possible. There are many ways available to control pests in the garden or weeds or what have you without resorting to chemicals. And use chemicals only as a last resort if something's about to get out of control and you have no other way to control it. But as you were just mentioning, the animals, butterflies and others, do suffer from many of these chemicals. There's not been an insecticide invented yet that knows how to just kill the bad bugs.
No, it doesn't. So what would you say, what insect would be like the champion at pollinating
So
out of all of them?
many people think the honeybee is probably the champion, and certainly for our food crops, the honeybee has no equal, really. Many people probably know that they're trucked all around the country to be in the almonds when they flower, then in the blueberries when they flower, and so on. So, you know, the honeybee is a superstar. But for many home gardens, I challenge people to think of other bees besides honeybees. One fact that often escapes people's notice is that the honeybee is but one species of bee. There's over 3,500 species of bee found here in North America.
3,500? I didn't know there was that many. That's a lot.
That is a lot of bees, and many people are blown away by that statistic.
Wow.
Many of them are very, very small, being only a few millimeters long. Others are like the bumblebees, which are a good half-inch long and very noticeable.
Yeah, we're adding a house, bumblebee house, to our garden this year.
Yeah.
So.
And there are many other kinds of nests, such as bamboo nests, twig nests, and nests can be drilled into the side of standing logs and things like that. It's becoming very easy to find advice or suggestions on how to do this around your home.
Now you can definitely tell we're not at the homestead. So, if someone was gonna maybe start a butterfly garden, what would you suggest? Like, walk us through the process from like framework to bed to soil to plants up.
The first thing you should do is take a look at the site where you want to put the garden in. You're going to have much more success if you can site your butterfly garden in full sun. What that means is generally getting about 6 or more hours of sun per day. So some shade is fine, but you can't have it nearly totally shaded. Butterflies just don't like that, and the plants won't either.
No.
So that's step one. Pick a good site, and then take a look at how big it is, because you're going to want to start with just a few plants at a time. Consult a local nursery or a local expert to ask them what would be the superstar nectar or host plants for your area. You know, I mentioned some that work really well here in the Midwest, like milkweed, and there's other superstar plants like purple coneflower for nectar, or the blazing stars for nectar. Start with those. Add to your garden year after year and let it grow. Try to have plants that will bloom from right after frost ends all the way through to October or so when first frost begins. So try to have plants that are blooming all year long.
So like a succession planting where some will bloom, then the next batch will bloom.
Correct.
So you'll have color all around your house all the time, plus you'll be providing this ecosphere for the butterflies.
For both of those reasons, right? You'll never have a time when your garden's not colorful and pleasing to your eye.
Right.
You'll never have a time where it's not attracting butterflies and pollinators.
So when the butterfly does its thing, it's basically going to lay its eggs underneath maybe a leaf, or how does that, what's the whole process there?
It usually is on the leaves. Caterpillars eat leaves while butterflies drink the nectar out of the flowers. So the female will lay the eggs directly on the leaf of the host plant. The caterpillars will hatch. They'll already be right where they need to be to eat.
Sure.
And do they venture out, or if the food source is there, they're going to stay right in that area?
Typically, they will stay right on the food plant. What sometimes happens, let's take parsley as an example. Parsley will attract black swallowtails in our area. Some people start with one parsley plant, the caterpillars will eat it to the ground, then they'll venture off to look for more.
Right.
So another point to mention would be, if your goal is to attract caterpillars, you may want to consider group planting. Don't just have one of those plants.
Yeah, because like a honeybee
Right.
can go a couple miles.
Yes.
But then these guys are a little bit more local.
Yeah, well, as a caterpillar, you know, they're crawling.
Sure.
So
Sure.
they're only where their little feet can take
Right.
them.
Right.
Definitely.
And there's not like a hive area where they're going to go to and
no.
repopulate and hang out.
So we were talking a little earlier about the honeybees, and you were talking about, you know, how honeybees are, a lot of people have them shipped to different places, and how important it is to get local bees.
Right.
Can we talk about that?
Absolutely. So there's a distinction between honeybees and the native bees. Honeybees are actually from Europe and are not a North American native.
Yeah.
Right.
And they are very valuable for the food crops that we've come to rely on. So when you talk about them being trucked, it's the agriculture trade that does that.
Sure.
There are beekeepers who make sure their bees are where they need to be so farmers can have their pollination services. Around your home, you probably will see honeybees, because odds are very good that there's a beekeeper within a few miles of you, at least in most cities there are. But what you really want to try to provide a home for around your home are the native bees. Everything from bumblebees to sweat bees to mason bees to many, many others.
Right.
And if you plant native wildflowers, which again, you can get recommendations if you don't know quite what those are from any local source, extension service, nursery, or any place. And if you put those native plants in, you will attract native bees.
That's good
And
stuff.
it's really that easy. That's all they need. They've come to rely on those plants as their food over millions of years.
I was reading in some older literature about how the pioneers and before, they would just go out, there were so much trees and flowers and native grasses and everything native that it was nothing for them just to walk right out, and there would be bees and honey and everything right there. And then they, through mining that, and then the evolution of everything and the thinning out of the flowers and the forestry stuff, that's why now you have to truck these bees around. You know, normally that they would all be in these areas.
Right, because
lot.
just regular beekeepers, they have to get their bees from somewhere, and then
Yeah.
they just come in.
Correct.
Yeah, that's one of the things we're going to do this year, is we're actually going to try to capture a swarm. We've captured swarms before, but this time we're aiming for like a wild swarm, and then we're going to raise those up next to some bought bees, and we're going to see the difference between their behavior.
That's our little
and then how
experiment
they,
this year.
Yeah, how they make it through winter and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
That sounds like a fun thing to observe.
Yeah, yeah. And then we're also, Stacy's goal is to have a nice butterfly garden this year. So that's one of the reasons why we came here, to get this information, and then we're going to implement it and show people how it looks, you know, through the year. So how long has this butterfly house actually been here?
So the Butterfly House opened in 1998. So we're celebrating our 20th year this year.
Right, that's good.
It is fabulous.
And then-
And you're getting ready for the March, the Morpho Madness, right?
They're actually here now because our Blue Morpho event goes through February and March now.
Oh, okay.
So yes, there's over 1,000 big Blue Morpho butterflies in our conservatory right now.
Yeah, that's cool.
And they're blue, and they're all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty neat.
And how long have you been here?
This is my 11th year.
And I guess you went to school and learned like the butterfly dude, or you know, what's your education?
Yeah,
on
I
that?
have a general degree in entomology, so I got a master's in entomology. So butterflies is just one of the insects I love to talk about.
What are some of the others?
Well, one of my favorites has always been beetles. Then of course all the bees, such as we've been talking about. The thing I like most about insects is just how many of them there are. You
Right.
can never run out of something interesting to talk about.
I think one of the problems are, you know, things that people have is this phobia about the bees, and they kind of get a bad rap. Like, if they just, a lot of people that watch our channel, they see us handling bees or you know, involved with them, and they just are really like, because they think they're just going to get stung automatic.
Yes.
You want to touch on that a little bit?
I'm very glad you brought that up so we can talk about it. There is a fear about bees, absolutely. Many people are worried about installing a garden with flowers near their school or near their house because they're just sure they're going to get stung. What I can tell you and you guys probably have the same experience, is that I've worked out in this garden now for 11 years. Sometimes you're working or digging like right next to a bee. You won't get stung. To show kids how unconcerned with us they are, I often put my hand right next to a foraging bee and it just keeps on messing with the flower. Bees really only sting people when we're about to destroy their home, or when we give them no other choice, like stepping on one with bare feet.
Right, or pinching in between your arm and your chest. You know, just
Right.
They feel like they're defending themselves.
And very often people mistake yellow jacket wasps, which have the same color pattern as a bee, with a bee. Well, yellow jackets are 100 times more aggressive.
Right.
And if one's hanging out like near a trash can or whatnot, might turn around and sting you.
Right.
Where bees typically don't have that aggressive response.
And then what do you know, like, about the people who talk about and kind of hype up this Africanized bees? You got anything on that?
So when it became a big hype a few years ago, I think people were very concerned about it, and in the many years that have passed since then, it's proven not to be quite such a concern, at least in this area. All I'm aware of, which is not much because it's not a specialty of mine, is that in certain parts of the country where there's a higher population of that, there have been instances of like swarms, maybe chasing people and whatnot, which is what typically makes them more dangerous. Perhaps being a little more aggressive to sting, but it is not something that continues to dominate the news like you might expect if it really was a problem.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything.
Right.
No, not anymore. Okay, so you said your specialty, you like beetles.
I do like
So we had a little issue with Japanese beetles. So can we talk about that?
I thought it was the Beatles, like, you know, love me do.
That might be a different kind.
Wrong kind.
Japanese beetles?
Yeah, can we talk about that?
Sure. The Japanese beetle is another exotic, actually, as you might have guessed from Japanese beetles.
Sure.
But that's one reason why they're so out of control. They don't have any predators or parasitoids or diseases here that knock them down. Many people like to use those little hanging traps that attract them, but that's kind of a double-edged sword, because while they will go in the bag, you got to realize you're also attracting them from your neighbor's yard to your yard to go into your bag. And you got to think about that. The most effective way that I've found to control them involves a little bit of work, but it means walking around to your plants, preferably early in the morning, and throwing them in a bottle of soapy water where they'll drown.
And then the other thing that we did that helped tremendously is we got them all and fed them to the chickens.
If the chickens like it,
and they loved them.
Ate them right off.
We named one of our chicken Mrs. Beetle.
That's right.
Because
she loved them.
Yeah. So that worked out good.
It's like reuse a bit.
But that seems to work the best for me too. You have to hand pick them, but it does work.
It's one of those examples where I don't recommend insecticides because you're not going to hit that many beetles with it. What you will hit is beneficial bugs that are hanging out on your plants and might be helping you control aphids and scales and other nasty things like that.
So what other beetles, what beetles do you really like?
So there are more beetles on Earth than any other thing. So that's a very hard question to answer.
Well, I mean, just your thing.
My personal things are actually some of the really, really small ones that most people probably don't realize are there. By really small, I mean like a millimeter long, super microscopic. When you see them walking around, they look like specks of moving dirt. But if you put them under a microscope, they actually have, you know, ridges and bumps and sometimes little horns and things. They're like micro versions of rhinoceros
like dinosaurs.
But they're living down like in fallen leaves and sometimes in other habitats.
So they're
like that.
They're composters. They help with all that. We just need.
They're breaking down leaves for us. They're enriching the soil just like other insects in the soil do.
Cool. So like you guys have a lot of tours here for schools or age groups maybe?
Certainly. We do a lot of school field trips here. We do everything from preschool all the way up through middle and high school. We're also going out to schools and libraries and other venues all the time to do lessons on their site. We also have a series of youth and family programs and adult programs all throughout the year for learning on various topics.
And what's the website information for this butterfly house?
Sure. Check out www.butterflyhouse.org.
And you said that if you're local, maybe you could come and check it out, but they have a plant sale coming up?
If you're in the St. Louis area, we have our big native plant sale beginning April 7th and 8th and every other weekend in April.
So those plants that are for sale, are they pollinator? I mean, is that the intention of them?
Absolutely. They're pollinator supporting native plants.
It's awesome stuff. Anything you want to add, like to anyone watching right now, like to a good little suggestion or something about attracting butterflies?
Yeah, just to say that pollinator gardening is very easy and very worthwhile. Attracting butterflies is easier than you might think because if you plant the right plants, they will come. And you don't have to have a big space to have a
If
successful
you
garden
plant
either.
it, they will come.
That's right. And so one thing I forgot to mention or talk about is the huge atrium here of what is that all about? You could talk on that for a second.
Well, it's the highlight of our facility for sure. It actually features tropical butterflies. So a visitor here can see those butterflies from other countries like Costa Rica and Malaysia that you'd never see outside in North America, and then step outside into the garden where we're filming this and appreciate our beautiful Missouri butterflies.
So in that atrium area, how big is it and how warm do you keep it?
Yeah,
Stuff like
it's
that.
an 8,000 square foot conservatory. We have to keep it at least 85 degrees and 75% humidity because that's the temperature where these guys come from.
Yeah.
Very tropical. So even when there's snow on the ground outside, you'll find those temperatures inside that conservatory.
And I like the walls and you have rooms dedicated for like hands-on things for the kids, if you want to touch on something like that.
Yeah, we have a succession of special events throughout the year. So even as the Morpho event that you mentioned is ending, our Spring Fling event ends, and then there's more throughout the rest of the year. You'll always find something exciting for your family to engage with here. Hands-on activities, toys, games, puzzles, and live animals.
Yeah, that's neat stuff. And then you actually have a spot where you show the morphing from cocoon to butterfly?
Right. We actually receive all of these tropical butterflies in their chrysalis stage. So you'll never see a caterpillar in our conservatory. Because they are coming straight from those tropical countries, they come to us as a chrysalis. But we do hang those up, and if you're here at just the right time, it happens every day, but you can actually see a butterfly coming out of its chrysalis.
Like, I mean, are you getting those shipments like once a week or once a week?
We do get them weekly.
No kidding.
And that's because a butterfly's natural lifespan, if it just dies of old
then
age,
you'll have nothing inside of there.
it's only about 3 to 4 weeks. And then
So you're not. Is that
old.
Federal Express, UPS?
It's basically FedEx Air.
Yeah, that's great.
Crazy.
Quick as possible.
Right,
Yeah.
that really
Yeah.
says something. So yeah, that's a constant cycle. So this place, does it operate off donations, or is it public, like city funded, or how does that work?
So we rely on the generous contributions of our patrons, our guests, and also on donors.
Yeah.
We are a nonprofit. We're a division of the Missouri Botanical Garden.
Right.
So even though the garden is in downtown St. Louis and we're in Chesterfield, so we're separated in space, but we are one of their divisions. And we benefit from all of the Classes That Book education programs. Every ticket sold at our front doors can be directly tied to butterfly conservation, actually. Because we're supporting these butterfly farmers who are conserving the rainforest.
Sure.
Right.
You're supporting us, and we can turn that money back into supporting butterflies.
It's a community supported program. I love that stuff.
Yep.
That's good stuff.
So I have one question to ask you. So when you look at insects that are pollinators, what would be like the difference between wind or like other animals pollinating? Is there like a difference?
There is a difference. When you mentioned wind, certain plants, trees especially, certain grains, are only wind pollinated. The bees don't even bother visiting them.
Right.
But there are other plants where the bees do visit where the pollen is too heavy to be blown by the wind.
Sure.
So those flowers have evolved to attract the bees and the other pollinators so they can move the pollen around. There's always differences in how the flowers look. Try to find a flower on a corn plant sometime.
Right.
It's barely recognizable as a flower.
Right.
That's because it's wind pollinated. Yeah.
And then you say it's a little heavier, so it relies on the bees to come and do it. That's
Right.
amazing, because every time I see a bee and it's full of pollen, it has like those big yellow things on its arms, and it looks like little mussels.
That's the pollen. Yeah. Big, sticky, wet pollen. Yeah.
And if you guys noticed the video that we put up, I'll leave a link right there where we actually caught the bees doing an early spring cleaning because it got warm, and you could see them pulling them out
Pulling
and
all the
taking
dead
out the
bees
dead
out.
bees.
Yeah,
Really
so
neat
cool.
footage.
Very cool.
A lot of people need to go watch that video. It was really neat. Man, this is great. Well, we appreciate your time and hanging out with us.
You're welcome.
And if you guys have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below. Maybe we'll get him to visit the video and maybe kind of answer your questions there. Otherwise, stay tuned for another Field Trip Friday. What else?
Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I want to thank you so much, Chris. This was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate your time, and we really enjoy this facility. We've been coming here for years. We used to bring the kids here when they were smaller. We were just here last year with the grandchildren. Our aunt actually worked here, if you knew that.
Oh, really?
Her aunt, yeah.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Yeah.
So you guys try to look for these community-supported things in your neighborhoods and your communities, and you know, support them. It's also good education for your family, for your kids, and also for our food system. You know, we talk about how important the bees are. If you can keep bees or you know, bring these pollinators to your yards, that's what you need to do.
Absolutely. Every little bit helps.
That's right. We'll see you on the next video.
See you guys. Hey guys, thanks for watching our video. You might want to check out these videos.
And if you want to become a Homestead homie, click the picture of us below.
We will see you tomorrow.